Several years ago, up in the mountains in Park City, Utah, I met the most brilliant and hilarious young comedian. He was aspiring to greatness at that time. His name was Alex Edelman. We had Shabbat dinner together, and then we talked deep into the night. And then we got to learn Torah together the next day and then the next. And since then, we have become friends. Now, that young man from Park City, Utah, is one of the most critically hailed comedians of his generation. Alex Edelman is best known for solo shows that blur the line between his stand-up comedy roots and narrative-driven storytelling. His latest offering, Just for Us, played more than 500 performances all over the world, including on Broadway, before premiering as an HBO original comedy special in April of 2024. Earning him a place on the Times 100 list, a Tony Award, and you may have noticed a couple weeks ago, an Emmy Award. So, okay, there's lots more to say about Alex's bio, but I have a sense this room knows him already, so we're going to stop here. But the reason that I wanted to have this conversation with Alex Edelman is I knew how much my sermon would bum you out yesterday, so I wanted to have a little redemption, a little lift you up moment. I'll say more about that in a moment, but I am so thrilled to welcome to our community David Yosef Shimon Ben Elazar Ruven Alexander Halevi Edelman. Please join me.
I'll never forgive you.
Okay.
My God.
So
it's in the window of time that I halachically have to forgive you for that. But I,
Oh, I'm very excited about this. Okay, in truth, I had an experience this year that I believe many people in this room had, which is when I was encountering one of those moments of profound sadness, even bordering on hopelessness. I got tickets to go see a show in which Alex Edelman made me laugh so hard that I cried. And it was a different kind of tears than the tears I had been crying so much of this year. And I want to talk to you about what happens in that room when you are able to lift our hearts and our spirits and allow us to access something so different from what we come in with. But the way that I want to do it, because you're Alex Edelman and you're actually a knowledgeable Jew and a serious Torah Jew, what I want to do is I want to get there through a little bit of learning.
Sure.
So this conversation will start and end with Torah.
Sure.
And everything in the middle will be Torah too. So, okay. So
you removed your tallis before you did this. I will enjoy this as a person, but rabbinically I can't condone anything that happens between now and whenever this is over.
I'm going to tell you why I took off the tallis.
It's like a corrupt cop removing his badge before he Here's the envelope. This goes in the pocket. There you go.
It's already working. Okay. I'll tell you why I take off the tallis. I once gave this really, really brave sermon, like out of my comfort zone. I worked so hard. I learned every word. And I was like, I'm so glad my kids are in the room for this. Because I don't know what they'll remember about me, but maybe they'll remember this sermon. And they'll be like, my mom was brave. And then I look in the back and I caught eyes with Eva Brous, who turned 21 years old yesterday on Rosh Hashanah. Woo. And Eva's like this. She's holding up her fingers in the air, and I don't know what's going on. Every time I flip my tallis, she was counting the flips. And I'm like, oh, that's what she'll remember when I'm gone. So that's why I didn't want to distract us. Okay. I also want to say that as Alex and I prepared for this, which was in its own right a great joy, we also got to learn with Alex's beloved father, Elazar, and just how wonderful. I got to learn with Alex Edelman and his dad.
It's fantastic. He's very Orthodox, so he won't be watching this. But at some point when we were discussing how a shofar is the only sound you hear in a shul on Rosh Hashanah, I could see, he's like, because, obviously in a shul, you never have any other musical instrument whatsoever. I was like, well, you have to come to IKAR and save yourself. But well timed.
Okay, so you all have source sheets in front of you. We're going to use some of these texts as a jumping off point for our conversation. Really the leitmotif of the Rosh Hashanah Torah readings, which we read yesterday and today, is this word tzachak. tzachak. And laughter, it means. And it gives us an opportunity to really explore joy and to explore laughter and where those two things are connected and where they're sometimes not connected, which I hope Alex will shed some light on. But let me just give a brief background and we'll take a look at our text for just a moment. We see this word tzachak. By the way, when Alex and I started learning and I knew I was in trouble, he's like, wait a second, tzachak isn't the only verb we use to describe laughter. What about with a shin instead of a tzadi? Yeah. And I thought, he's a real tzadi and also knowledgeable. Yeah, very knowledgeable Jew. Okay, here we go. So in Genesis 17, as you'll see on the top of your sheet, when Abraham hears that he is going to become a father at an old age, it says, Vayitzchak. It says, Vayipol Avraham al panav, Vayitzchak. He threw himself on his face and he laughed because he couldn't believe that a child could be born to a man that's so old. You'll see that echoed. I'm going to skip down to text 2 for a moment from Genesis 18. It says, Vatitzchak Sarah b'kirba. Sarah laughed inside of herself when she found out that she was going to become a mother at 90 years old. Super rare. And then... And then
medicine, they can do anything these days, but yeah.
Right. And then if you go back to source 1 for just a moment, of course, we know that when Yitzchak is born, that the name of this child is called Yitzchak. So Abraham laughs, Sarah laughs, the child is named Yitzchak, and then I'm just going to add one more piece to this puzzle, which is, of course, in this dysfunctional family story that we read on Rosh Hashanah, days 1 and 2, there is a tension that emerges between Abraham's oldest child, named Ishmael, and his second child, named Yitzchak, named for laughter. And part of the reason that Sarah, the mother of Yitzchak, the child who the laughter, and he will have me laugh, part of the reason that she wants to have the boy and his mother, Hagar and Ishmael, sent out of the home, is because Ishmael is mitzachek with Isaac. That the older brother is mitzachek. Now, from everything I've just told you about tzachak, we think that might be a good thing, that he laughs with his little brother. He's paying attention to the little guy. That's not the way our tradition reads it. We read all kinds of horror show into what Ishmael's actually doing to Isaac that justifies him being kicked out. Alex, what do you make of all of the laughter that appears in these texts?
Well,
what's going on here?
You know, obviously there are different... I think an interesting starting point is the covenant that Hashem makes with Abraham and Sarah through the name Yitzchak, right? And you were saying when you were sort of prefacing this that you laughed in a time that you were upset. And so a really interesting thing about tzachak as it's used in Bereshis is that each laughter can have, obviously, as you pointed out, a different meaning. But even more than that, each laughter is bound to a different emotion, a different experience. And tzachak, as it relates to Rosh Hashanah, laughter, some commentaries say it's not a good translation. Because what it really is, it's an expression of how we feel in a way that is hard to articulate in words. So, tzachak, in this first instance, Abraham laughs as a child. Can a child be born to a man who's 100 years old? Can Sarah bear children at 90? And his laughter is one of ironic disbelief, because he's like, well, we're going to orphan this kid. He's like, this kid's chance of being orphaned in the next 5 years is already, like, pretty astronomical. And Sarah's laughter is like, oh, great, God is giving me a child at the time when I'm not going to enjoy this. Mom, do you want us to wheel you over to the window so you can watch us play? Like, it's not going to... And of course, there's a third thing, which is the different commentaries, depending on where they lived and how angry they were at the non-Jews who lived around them, interpreted the interaction between Ishmael and Yitzchak in varying degrees of generosity. But some say it borders on abuse, and some say that it is abuse, and some say that it was just not taking the child seriously. But all of them seem to share this idea that Ishmael would not give his brother the sort of right, the right of being siblings, so that's why he was like. So yeah, and obviously, I guess the point I'm making, if I am making one, is that in the shoresh sachak, there are so many different types of laughter, but they're all bound up with different primal emotions, very different, difficult emotions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so something that I'm really struck by is the way that Rashi addresses the difference between Avraham and Sarah's laughter. Mm-hmm. So again, literally the exact same verb is used to describe the way the experience that the two of them have. But if you look at Rashi in text 4, he's basing this on Onkelos, who does a running translation of the Torah, and he notices that Onkelos translates that tzachak differently for Abraham and Sarah. But listen to this. When Avraham laughs, it's a reflection of faith and joy. When Sarah laughs, it's an expression of sneering, right? Mm-hmm. It means that she precisely does not have faith, that's what she's saying. And so I think what they're trying to do is differentiate for us between different kinds of laughter. And I shared with Alex that at some point, like a year and a half ago, I went to a comedy show. I sat in this room with people full of laughter. They laughed the entire time. All the comedian did on the stage was insult women, literally for an hour and a half. Like it was, I mean...
Name names.
That's for Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
I only do that on Yom Kippur. So, but actually...
Which Sklar brother was it? No, I'm just kidding. Hi, Randy.
It's definitely Jason.
Oh, Jason.
Yeah. Randy would never do that. But what I thought was, everyone's laughing, so they're having this experience of laughter, but it's at the expense of, me and my sisters. But then at your show, I felt something totally different. It felt like the laughter was really a tikkun. It felt like a cleansing of my soul in some way. And I know that you think a lot about this. Like, what are we actually striving for? And are there different kinds of laughter? Tell us what your thoughts are.
So laughter meets an audience halfway. Laughter is as much about the person laughing, and I think the Torah communicates this beautifully, actually. Laughter is as much to do with the joke, as much to do with the receiver of the joke as it does to do with the teller of the joke and the joke itself. And so we laugh because we experience some connection or acceptance or universal truth. And so Freud says that all dreams are jokes because we're so connected with our subconscious when we're asleep that we experience an unconscious truth. And so all jokes connect somehow with a truth that we believe to be unconscious. So if you're sitting in a room of misogynists and there are jokes at the expense of women, then they're going to laugh at it because to them that is a subconscious truth. If you're sitting in a room of people, all of us have been in rooms where jokes would land, where it wouldn't land in other rooms, right? You're performing to a convention of plumbers, and you're like, oh my God, and I realized I'd used an M5 instead of an M4, and everyone's like, oh my God. Like, it's not gonna connect as well with people who don't understand that pipe width is very important, So it's like, shut up. But so it's about the audience that receives it. But all my favorite jokes are the one, and there's one that I tell very often that I found like an academic paper from the 70s. I don't know if it's okay if I've told you this one.
Please.
The Holocaust one.
Yeah, go for it.
So there's hold on. But it's so much worse than you think. There's my favorite joke. I think it's the most beautiful joke there is. It's not funny. It's about this guy who dies, and he goes to heaven, and he meets God. And they're chatting. And the guy says to God, would you like to hear a joke? And God's like, oh, sure, I love jokes. And the guy tells God a Holocaust joke. And God goes, I have to tell you, I don't find that joke funny at all. And the guy says, well, I guess you had to be there, huh? And that is the best that joke has ever gone, if I'm being honest with you. Because it connects with a real universal truth, right? It connects with a thing that we, if we're thinking Jews, think about constantly. And so, I remember I did this joke on some radio show in Australia, and afterwards the host went, I have to tell you, I don't think that joke is very appropriate. And I went, I think it's too important not to joke about. And so I think jokes, when they're at their best, they strike at this like real core. But yeah, it's as much to do with the audience as it has to do with the person telling it. So.
Yeah. Here, I think we get that joke.
Just yeah, I know, I get it.
Unfortunately, we get that. Yeah. I mean, yeah. You've shared that Adam, your collaborator and dearest friend, if I may, that he shared with you this really deep Torah of that when you're speaking before an audience, that your job is to help people understand what is your place in the world.
Yeah. He said that every good solo show should ask the question, what is our place? What is our place in the world? And it helps keep a show evergreen. Although people were like, I wrote this just for us, which is a little bit to do with assimilation and a little bit to do with anti-Semitism in 2018. And since then, people are like, God, the show is so timely. And I'm like, oh, yeah? You ever want to write an evergreen show, write one about how anti-Semitism is a problem or ice cream is good. Like, you're totally set. But yeah, Adam was my closest collaborator for a decade. He passed away right before we started on Broadway, and he was a really lovely guy. And he was not Jewish, but he always, at the beginning of our collaboration, sometimes clumsily would try to connect be like, no, what would the Jewish teaching on this be? I'm like, a joke about a horse? I don't know. But yeah, he thought that this sort of existential question of what makes you an outsider, what makes you, what are your prime desires, that was always the thing that every joke should sort of strive to. It gives you an attitude, it gives you a point of view, it gives you something artistically to speak to. And, the people that I love the most, some of whom are comedians, but most of whom are not, the thinkers that, even folks who aren't artists, the ones who have the strongest point of view are the ones who are very self-aware about what their place is in the world and the place that they like it to be. So,
I felt it so profoundly in that theater because it was a time in which I think many Jews were making this decision to either pull away from their Jewishness or to lean into their Jewishness, but in a way that was dictated by a script someone else was writing. And I felt like there you were, Alex Edelman on stage, and you're like, I'm going to fully lean into it. And it's not in the way that, that anyone else is expecting.
I had to lean into it. They had printed the advertisements already. There's like nothing to do. I'd love to frame it as, but sorry.
Well, look, you obviously, the show emerged, but it came into the world after October 7th, but you wrote the show, you created the show before October 7th, and the whole world was different by the time it came out. And so, I wonder how this show would have played, 5 years ago, because obviously, as you said, anti-Semitism is always relevant, but it's different. It was different.
I did the show 5 years ago. I did the show in in places where there were very few Jews. I did the show in like Wales and Australia and Korea and places where
Jewish centers.
Yeah, of course. Sometimes this guy came up to me in Aberystwyth, Wales, and he went, it's nice he said, I've been waiting for Jewish comedy to come to Aberystwyth for a while. And I was like, oh, what's the Jewish population of Aberystwyth? And he's like, right now it's us. It's like us too. He went, not only am I getting Jewish comedy, but the Jewish population of Aberystwyth doubled today. And I was like, great.
I always felt that way in Park City, by the way.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Right.
You walk around and people are just like, But look, I think doing the show before October 7th was different, and I had this real moment, if I'm being totally honest. Maybe this isn't that interesting, but where I was thinking, do I change the show to address what's going on in the world? And I kept thinking about that, and so I added one line at the beginning of the show to show. This is more of a craft thing. It's not that interesting, but when I was in high school, I went to see John Updike, who's a novelist, give a talk. And and so I said this line at the beginning of the show. I go, before I start, the show has some stuff about anti-Semitism. And when I was in high school, I went to see John Updike give a talk, and John Updike said, if you were lucky, at one point in your life, the work that you write will find itself in conversation with the times in which you live. And then I would go, well, call me Mr. Lucky. So, but again, it's hard because you want to acknowledge a truth, which is that, oh my gosh, I'm thinking about this, but I don't know that the whole thing should be about it. So practicing that restraint is very... Sorry, keep going, Rabbi. This is
Okay.
too...
I mean, something that's interesting that happened also in that theater is that, I mean, I spoke a little bit yesterday about how this time kind of broke us, how it broke our families, our communities. I mean, people who we love see this moment very, very differently, and even small differences can be very painful. But in the room, there was laughter. And so I think your dad and you and I were talking about, your dad shared this teaching that he learned directly from the Rav, by the way, from Rav Soloveitchik, because that's what Elazar Edelman does.
My dad, so if you guys, sorry, I interrupted you, Rabbi.
It's okay, go ahead.
So my dad was, so there's obviously a great rabbi on the East Coast who, his name was Rav Joseph Soloveitchik. He wrote this tremendous book called Lonely Man of Faith. He's sort of the founder of modern Orthodox Judaism. And my dad was raised in his synagogue and sat next to him every Shabbos and Yontif for 27 years. And so I've had like 4 or 5 times the incredible joy of watching someone try to quote the Rav in front of my father. And sort of like the Marshall McLuhan scene in Annie Hall. My dad will be like, oh, that's actually not what the Rav thought. And they're like, well, how do you know? And he's like, oh, he told me. So it's like that. Thank God Rabbi Brous was talking about Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik, and my father was like, actually his, not to say anything bad. He's like, my father started the sentence with, I like Meir a lot personally, but yeah, he learned everything from the Rav, and I think if I know anything about Torah, it's just regurgitating the little flecks that I know from my father.
Okay, so here's one of the teachings that of the Rav that he shared, which is that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur invite us into a kind of wordless spiritual awakening, and that the verb tzachak that we're talking about here, which is laughter, is only one letter away from tza'ak, which is to cry out, which is what the sound of the shofar is to evoke in us. And so actually what we're doing is, I mean, this is the most powerful experience, is to be able to connect with each other and with the tradition, even without words. And we're people who use words to help people connect. But beyond words is laughter, is tears, is silence, and is the sound of the shofar. And that can actually transport us someplace that maybe the words couldn't even.
I think that's why it's probably my favorite. It's actually probably my favorite holiday on the Jewish calendar. All worship is a desire to put the ineffable into something expressive. And so what Rosh Hashanah does in this dialectic between tza'ak and tzachak is explain sort of that, and like the point of the shofar is to say that the rest of the year we try, and today we take no chances. Today we express in the most primal way, in a wordless way, in a voiceless way, our desire to connect with Hashem, our desire to forgive ourselves for whatever wrongdoings that we've done this year, and resolve to go forward better. And it's, by the way, the Baal Shem Tov saw it as a journey. The Hasidic master, the Baal Shem Tov, saw tza'ak as a starting point and tzachak as a. He always viewed Avraham and Sarah's laughter as acceptance of a thing that they had been wondering for a long time. Will we have a child? Will we be able to be parents? And the laughter was, sometimes in Sarah's case a bit more bitter, but a resolve of a journey that started with a primal cry for childhood, tza'ak, and ends with tzachak. So the idea of tzachak and tza'ak being in conversation with each other, being paired, is like very old and good one. So.
I love this, that a journey that starts with crying out might end with laughter.
It's why we don't blow the shofar on Shabbos, because the tza'ak of the shofar, tza'ak means to shout, it means to cry out. And so the idea that we cry out in longing on the Shabbos, it's not appropriate. We're supposed to be resolved, we're supposed to be at peace, we're supposed to be grateful for wherever we are. So.
There's something else that's happening, which is the weaving together of souls in a space where people can laugh together, sing together, cry out together. There's a reason why we grieve together. We don't grieve alone. And
Speak for yourself. No, that's good.
Well, I just will say, again, I'm speaking to, by the way, I had this experience. How many people saw the show live? I'm just curious.
Oh my God.
Amazing.
Thanks for the money, guys. Hey, you're not going to, wow. Didn't tell you it was coming on HBO. You could have watched it at home,
I did both. I watched it in the theater, and I also watched it at home. I also thought there's 100% crossover between this crowd and and IKAR, and I think that was sort of right. So what I want to say about it is, I think also part of the experience of this year, partially due to the fact that we felt many of us alienated, even from people we love very much, was that there was a kind of loneliness that set in over the course of last year, and then when we were together in this space, and we weren't just in the same room, but we were laughing together at the fact that, you noticed that one of the Nazis in the room was kind of hot, and you thought, you never know.
That's not how I turned it. I'm being misquoted, I feel like Uncleist right now. No, I'm checking. I didn't say that yeah, fine, she was hot. What do you want from me?
Your dad already saw the show. It's like you don't have to protect him.
Look, I'd like to ski black diamonds, right now, but But yeah, by the way, people, if there's anyone in here, I'm sure many people who haven't seen the show are just like, what is she talking about? The show, if you don't know, I went to this meeting of white nationalists in Queens, and eventually one of them's like, sorry, but this guy's Jew. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a Jew. And so that's what that's probably what the show is about. But this whole thing is lovely but ridiculous. That I don't know. I thought that there was a chance at connection. The point, I think, no, I'm serious. There is the thing that I love about the show. Only one thing. We had good merch. The thing that I love about the show is that I think that there is a thing that I picked up from my yeshiva upbringing and my Jewish upbringing that is just not anywhere in our milieu, which is that no one is beyond reach, and no one is beyond saving, and no one is beyond... I had such a temptation after I said no one's beyond saving to be like, which is why I'd like to talk to you about Jesus Christ. But no, that's good. This seems like neither the time nor the place, but
It's not. It's really not.
The towels is over there. She gave me a good. But yeah, I do think that I do think that in our environment, in this rancorous, horrific environment that we find ourselves in relation to Israel and Gaza, in relation to our political environment, in relation to the things that we find socially unacceptable and the tolerance paradoxes that we insist that we find ourselves in, that there isn't someone who can be connected with on a human level. And I think the optimism of seeing a woman and not thinking anything idealistic is a deal breaker, but having the bravery to think she's very attractive.
Really
yeah. I'm not shallow. I saw her for who she was, which was a tall blonde. But I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think that the hope of connecting with people on a profound level, whatever, keep going. Right?
Okay.
I've neutered my own point with asides, so.
Wait, tell us about which part of Boston you come from.
I say I come from a really racist part of Boston called Boston.
Okay. So
maybe do my actor here, geez.
Okay, so I'm gonna transition us to the second piece of what we're gonna do together. There's actually three pieces. The last one's super short. John Oliver. I heard John Oliver in an interview that David shared with me recently, and listen to what he says. He said, "Comedy's the way that I handle the world. The darkest moments of my life, I still find myself compelled to make jokes, either to take the weight off of something, or sometimes to feel what's happening more deeply, right? Because I think we think of comedy sometimes as an escape from reality, but I think that what you do, and I think also what he does, if I may, is to help us see something more deeply, understand it more deeply, and connect with others more deeply." So he says, "I find people employing comedy at moments of tragedy incredibly meaningful." He talks about Jimmy Kimmel speaking about his son's illness, and he said, "The fact that he was telling jokes while choking through tears was the thing that really meant something to me. It was more sincere because he was communicating in the crucible of his pain through jokes? How could you not tell jokes about a situation that is so absolutely absurd? And this connects to today's Torah reading, because today we just read the most absurd story. We just read the story about a boy that was born into this world after his parents prayed and worked and fought for literally decades, for a century, for him to be born. And then God says, take that precious treasure that you fought for so much in this world and go slaughter him up on a mountain, offer him as a sacrifice. And actually, what I share in this text a couple of teachings from Rav Hirsch and Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik, not the Rav, Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik.
As my father hastens to
point out. And what they both point out, I think, is really interesting, which is that the tzachak that we've read again and again yesterday, and in yesterday was actually a setup for today's story, the absurdity of life itself for the Jew and maybe for everybody. And the very fact of Isaac being born is absurd, and that's why they're all laughing, because that doesn't happen in this world. And what I think is so interesting about Rav Hirsch and Soloveitchik say is that it comes to actually remind us that the Jew throughout history will be forced to confront utter absurdity again and again and again, and that our response is laughter. And so on Rosh Hashanah, we encounter laughter as a way of reminding the spirit the world is upside down, folks. So when it strikes, when that absurdity strikes again, remember that we still have this gift of being able to laugh, and even being able, dare I say, to find joy, even when the whole world turns upside down. And so on, as Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik says, this is why for centuries on the first day of the days of awe, Abraham's children, us, gather in synagogues all around the world and remember the birth of Isaac and beseech the Almighty God to grant us a year of life and love and laughter. That's what we're asking for, because we know that the world is absurd. We know that everything we know can be turned upside down in an instant. So give us the ability to also laugh amidst all of that absurdity. So what I wanted to do in light of that is actually read the IKAR in brief, and to invite Alex Edelman to step into the role of Unkelis, our translator who would translate the Torah into Aramaic, but instead to be our comedic meturgaman. And
it's not going to be funny. I don't know. It's okay. Fine.
Okay, this is going to be off the cuff, but I'm going to grab the text, and I'm going to ask Alex to just say, we just want to see a little glimpse. I know
Thanks
you have
for this, Rabbi.
Maimonides
I really appreciate
Academy.
this.
He's got this is a boy who's been to yeshiva, but I want to see when we read this, just to awaken in us what is humorous in the story that we just read, knowing that it's completely absurd. So give me a sec.
Thanks for setting me up for success here, Rabbi. It's really fantastic. Can I also see the text? Can I also see the... Fine.
Oh, no. Yeah. Sorry about that.
All right. He was raised Orthodox. He knows it by heart, It's... Can I point something out that's boring, but I think important? Everyone reads this. With all due respect to children in the room, every person who gets anywhere in the zip code of Rosh Hashanah for their bar bat mitzvah is like, I realized that the IKAR was actually really problematic and you're like, the idea that this is a cruelty, or the idea that this is shocking is very new. The idea that that the IKAR was something, because the reason Judaism was created, frankly, was most likely because people didn't want to sacrifice their kids anymore. And they lived in the Middle East, and the three most dominant religions, Baalism, Molochism, and I can't remember the third one, they were all big on human sacrifice. And they were particularly big on child sacrifice. And I think people are like, wouldn't it be great because our numbers are dwindling at an astonishing rate. Wouldn't it be great if there was a religion where we didn't have to kill 1 out of every 3 children? And so the funny thing is, if you were reading this, you would get to he'd be like, and God asks him to sacrifice a child. And if you were familiar, if you were growing up in this time in the Middle East, the Fertile Crescent, and you're like, yes, naturally, he will sacrifice the child, and he gets servants together. Like, oh, very good of him, and there's wood and stuff. Oh, good that they use wood this time, yeah. And then it gets to the top, and they're like, Abraham hears from God not to sacrifice it. If you were reading it, you'd be like, what?
Right.
It would have been, it's actually, I hate to use this word in such a heavy way, but it's actually very satirical. It would be a complete subversion of these child sacrifice narratives. The idea that a religious figure would sacrifice his only son, which we never see in any other major religion. I'd like to talk to you about Jesus Christ. No, I was kidding. Up until like the 1000s, like AD would be the expected thing to do would be for Abraham to sacrifice his kid here. So I just encourage people to read this through the lens of understanding that when the people who encounter this written down for the first time encountered it, their opinion at the end of it would be, I can't believe that guy doesn't have the guts to go through with sacrificing his kid.
I feel like that did most of the work that we wanted to get to together. But
yeah, sorry.
Turn to page 105. That's great. We're gonna do just a little taste of it from the text, and then we're gonna close with a little game, and then we'll go back to our Musaf. Sure. Actually, shofar, and then Musaf. So let's just read the fourth aliyah for a second, and I'm just curious what you say. So this is after Abraham has the knife raised over his son's neck, and I may actually go back just one little bit here. Okay, and God, and the angel of God calls out and says, Abraham says, here I am. He says, don't raise your hand against the boy. Let's look at verse 13 at the top of page 105. So chapter 22, verse 13, for those of you following along at home. Abraham looked up, and his eye fell upon a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. So Abraham went, and he took the ram, and he offered that up as a burnt offering in place of his son. And then God named the site Adonai Yireh, whence the present saying, on the Mount of Adonai there is vision. I just wonder what do you make of the ram here?
My favorite thing here is Vayirad at Einav, which is he's raising his eyes. There is an idea that, not to say everything counter to what I just said, there is an idea that God is looking for Abraham from the start to be like, no, thank you. And God is like, sacrifice your kid. And Abraham's like, absolutely. And God is like, okay, well, take him really far away at a really inconvenient clip for a man who's in his 120s. And Abraham's like, absolutely. And he's like, all right. And my favorite thing here is, I don't know if it's in the commentary, but it's, Rashi quotes an older midrash, the Ayal. The idea is that that the ram was there the entire time, and God suggested as a substitute from the time he asks Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, and Abraham is like, no, I'm going to do the kid. And God is like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, I'm going to do the kid. And so he gets up to the top of the mountain, and God is like, do you want to maybe look around for a ram or something like that? By the way, whenever anyone lifts their eyes to see something, there is in the Torah, in the Pentateuch, there is the idea that is something that they probably should have been seeing the entire time. Hagar lifts her eyes for a well. Moses lifts his eyes for a burning bush. Joseph, everyone, the idea is that these people are so fervent in their faith that God is like, hey, I want a lot from you, but I'm giving you a way out here. And they don't take it to the very last minute. So. Oh,
that's so good. Okay, I'm just going to say I can't find it now, but I did find myself tracking when I watched the show at home all the times that you indicate that Judaism is not fun and not funny, do you know? I feel like that has been decisively disproven in this moment.
No, Alex, it's not fun.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Look at us. What fun we're having.
Okay. You gotta laugh. That's the only thing you can. Okay, there you go.
Okay, so Alex does this thing sometimes, some of you may have seen on social media, where people ask him about things and he says if they're Jewish or not Jewish. Mm-hmm. And so we're just going to close with a little High Holy Day round of Jewish, not Jewish, if that's okay. And
sure, why not? Are we gonna take it from the crowd? We should take it from the.
Maybe we'll take one from the crowd. I happen to put together a few of my own.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Hold on. There's one. Can I point out one more thing in the text that I think is funny?
Please.
All right. So Abraham kills this ram. and God calls Abraham and is like, it's just me, I promise, which commentators make a meal of. And he says, because you have done this, I will now kibarech avrecha, like I will make you. And then it says, Abraham then returned to their servants, and they departed together for Beersheba, and Abraham stayed in Beersheba. And the commentators do ask the question, where's Isaac? Which supposes two different situations, both hilarious. One is that there was an extremely awkward ride home to Beersheba. Or two, Abraham was like, wow, that was crazy, let's go home. And Isaac is like, I'm not going anywhere with you. Some commentators are like, oh, he went to the Garden of Eden. Some commentators are like, he moved to Turkey. Some people are like, he took a 6-month trip to Japan to find himself. Every commentator is like, every commentator asks, where's Isaac? And every single answer is funnier than the last. So there you go. Sorry. Let's play Jewish, not Jewish.
Okay. All right, so here are a few. I mean, challah, obviously, but apple challah?
Wait, are you going to literally ask me Jewish, not Jewish for Jewish items?
Yeah, I am. Some of them are. Go on. You know how this works. It's just rapid fire.
Okay, I do this thing on social media sometimes. I'll be like, jaywalking is Jewish, but Winnipeg is not, like things that are like, it's just like ice cream, like mint chocolate chip is Jewish, Rocky Road is Jewish, like dark chocolate went to Cornell. Like there are all these different types of, so yeah, if you want to.
Okay, you're not going to answer apple challah. Okay,
I'll answer the fine. Challah. Challah is Jewish, but the more raisiny you get with it, the less Jewish it is.
I knew there was something in there. I knew it. Okay.
Challah is not supposed to be good. We're in this new Instagram chef phase. We're like, oh, challah is amazing. Yeah, challah is not challah, it's cake. Challah is supposed to be parv, it's supposed to taste bland, and it's supposed to be 3 days old on the Shabbos of a 3-day yontif. So all this new fun challah, it's nice, but it's like courage bagels. It's not, it's dressing up. Okay?
Wow. Okay. Now, this one might be specific to my childhood, but obviously not ham, but bacon.
What? What did you ask me?
Obviously ham's not Jewish, but bacon? A little bit Jewish?
Bacon's Jewish.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's not kosher, but it's Jewish.
Okay.
And it's a problem, and we need to talk about it. It's not like... Yeah, bacon's extremely Jewish. Try going to one Jewish... Although you go to like these amazing... Sometimes when I'm in another city that doesn't have a ton of Jews, I'll go to like when I'm in Indianapolis, I'll go to like Shapiro's or one of these like Jewish-style delis, and they're like, our special is a Hangtown fry. It is a bacon, oyster, cheese omelets. You're just like, it's perfect. It fits. So,
I have a friend who literally ordered a bacon-infused Bloody Mary at breakfast when we were away together.
Oh,
literally.
Fantastic.
Because.
Sometimes, but my favorite is whenever you're out with someone and they're like, I'll get the bacon. You don't mind, do you? And you're like,
yeah. Okay, I say this knowing that Marta Kaufman's probably in the room, but Monica from Friends, it's a thinker, but...
Everyone on Friends is Jewish.
Oh.
I don't know how... Everyone on Caroline in the City is Hasidic, but everyone... Yeah, Friends. By the way, people were like, oh, Jennifer Aniston, was she Jewish? I'm like, Rachel Green? Yeah, Rachel Green was Jewish. But Monica, I think Monica is Jewish. Courtney Cox has only been Jewish 5 times in her career. But one of them is Monica, and the other is in the Dancing in the Dark music video. It was canonically, she's Jewish. Ask Bruce, Bruce Springsteen. He'll tell you the truth. There you go.
Okay, saving seats.
Saving seats? It's the most, yes. Saving seats is Jewish.
The most Jewish.
And it's irritating. It is. Saving seats went to the University of Michigan, I'm telling you. Saving seats is Jewish, but saving parking spots is not.
Okay. Okay, just with an eye toward Yom Kippur, I mean, obviously guilt is Jewish, but what about sin?
Guilt is not Jewish.
No?
No, guilt isn't Jewish. Shame is Jewish, but guilt isn't Jewish. It's the same. Anxiety is not Jewish. So people are like, oh my God, oh, it's anxiety. Anxiety, that's very Ashkenormative of you guys, okay? You ever meet anyone Sephardi or Mizrahi? These are the most confident people you've ever met. Everyone's like, oh, anxiety is Jewish. I'm like, no, it's not Jewish. It's Ashken normative to assume so. Neither is guilt. Shame is Jewish, but yeah.
All right, what about love, Alex?
Love?
Yeah.
Don't make me answer anything earnestly up here. Yeah, look, love is Jewish, but love with conditions, that's what's Jewish. Unconditional love, I'd like to talk to you about Jesus Christ right now. But love, provided when God calls you to kill your kid, you're like, yeah, I'm fine, obviously. Hineni. Abraham says Hineni when God is like, where are you? He's like, I am here begrudgingly. That is the most Jewish thing.
Alex Edelman asks in your show, am I the hero we need in these difficult and divided times?
That is out of context. It's ironic.
I just want to say the answer to that might be yes, Alex.
No,
and
it's not.
Listen.
Can I say one quick thing? I really love this show. I really love Rabbi Brous. The Sklar brothers have been not just really close friends of mine, but I'd say even mentors. When I was planning on doing the show in COVID, I went for a walk with Randy and Jason. I was like, oh, no, I think I should do this show. And Randy's like, no, you should probably do it. And every time we talk, he reminds me of that. But so many people in this congregation have showed up for me over the last couple of years, and I really love coming here, and I really love this rabbi. So thank you so much for having me. It's
Alex
really
Edelman. Wow. And he's out. Wow. I'm just gonna, my close to this is that in Sarah's joy, she does say, because of my joy, I think all of the other women might be able to have joy too now, and they do miraculously. And I just thank all the joy makers and joy givers in this community for sharing and spreading your light. Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you.